we don't expand our imagination.
Justification for being what you are.
Welcome to Washington Unplugged. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Today, Goldman Sachs executives face the music as they testify on Capitol Hill amid allegations they helped create the housing bubble that led to the recession. Goldman CEO Lloyd Blankfein denies the charges but walks a fine line defending his firm's actions while acknowledging public anger. Another issue that's taken center stage is immigration reform. Arizona's tough new law has sparked a national debate over national security, states' rights, and race. Politico senior editor David Mark has been following both issues and joins us now to discuss. First, on Goldman Sachs. Tell us what the basic issues are being explored at the hearing today.
The basic issue is whether Goldman Sachs intentionally sold a faulty product and then bet against it, kind of like selling a used car and then betting that it's going to fail. That's what's really in dispute here. What hedge funds like Goldman Sachs generally do is bet against certain markets. There's nothing inherently wrong about this, but if they intentionally sold a bad product, that's what's being investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and that's what senators are probing into today.
It's been said that they made money on the way up as the housing bubble was being created, at the same time investing in the idea or belief that it was going to pop, right, and made money as well on the way down. Would that be illegal, or is it just something that looks bad?
It's unseemly, it's not very pretty, it's kind of the underside of the financial world, but it's not necessarily illegal. That's what the Securities and Exchange Commission is probing right now. But there's nothing necessarily illegal about shorting a certain market. That's how these institutions make their big money.
What will come out of the hearing today? Is there any sort of action that can be taken, or is this just putting issues out on the table?
It's really a chance for senators, particularly Democratic senators, to get in their licks. We've seen this kind of hearing in which there's kind of a bogeyman at the witness table, whether it's Enron, Blackwater, several other witnesses. The hope among a lot of congressional Democrats is that this will lead directly to financial reform. Republicans so far have been able to block that in the Senate, and the hope is that this will kind of spur on public anger and allow Democrats to overcome that Republican opposition.
All right, and speaking of public anger, let's move to Arizona. Can you sort of set the stage and tell us about the new immigration law and what the controversies are there?
This is really a cutting-edge immigration law, if we want to call it that. It would not only give police officers license to stop people just because they were suspected of looking like an illegal immigrant, it would actually mandate that law enforcement do that. This really takes law enforcement to a whole new level. A lot of Democrats are very angry about this. A lot of civil libertarians, even some Republicans, are none too pleased, and I think we can expect litigation to follow pretty quickly.
Is it true that it is a popular law within Arizona, that most of the voters or constituents seem to support that?
Sure. That's why it passed the state legislature in the first place, particularly people living down in Tucson near the Mexican border, in Phoenix, elsewhere in Yuma, in the lower part of the state. They feel like they're having to deal with the side effects of illegal immigration, whether it's crime, inflation, several other negative social consequences, and they're fed up and they want to do something about it.
How do you see that as affecting the national debate, especially as we move toward the November elections and there will be discussion of immigration reform?
The Latino vote is very much in play. President Obama won a majority of the Latino vote in 2008. President George W. Bush had made inroads in that community the prior election cycle. So Democrats feel like this is kind of a winning issue for them. The trouble they face, some of the hesitancy on some of the part of their own members, is that Democrats in Congress have already faced a number of tough votes, including health care. The last thing they want to do right now is to have to go on the record and cast a vote looking like they're favoring illegal immigration, whatever the merits of the issue are.
And I don't know how you move it forward. I remember a couple of years ago, as I know you do, all the many months that were spent on Capitol Hill trying to come to some sort of an immigration reform agreement. And every time when it came down to the wire, nothing could happen, even though pretty much everybody agreed something should be done.
Right. It's an interesting issue. It's not one that necessarily lines up in a partisan manner. You have some Democrats who are pretty tight on the borders. They want to have a pretty stringent border control. Some Republicans sort of favor cheaper labor. They're for more open borders. That was sort of the George W. Bush mold. So it's really difficult to put together a coalition that can compromise and get something passed.
Politico's David Mark, thanks so much.
Thank you.
It. The domestic and foreign issues are piling up for President Obama, and there's also trouble brewing between the White House and the press corps. In an effort to mend fences, Gibbs, the White House spokesman Robert Gibbs, met with several members of the White House Correspondents Association, and Reuters White House correspondent and White House Correspondent Association board member Karen Bowen joins me now to sort all of this out. What has caused the rift between the press corps and the White House?
Well, the precipitating event for the meeting that you mentioned, Sharyl, was an incident where the press pool was left behind when the president went to attend a soccer game for one of his daughters. And that's a very rare occurrence, and we felt the need to talk to him about that. But there have also been other issues brewing, such as photographers' concerns that the White House is handing out photo releases after the president meets with a foreign leader rather than allowing photojournalists in to cover the meeting.
Why is it so important, in your view, that the press be at the soccer game with the president, or that they take their own original pictures and video rather than having someone else who recorded the event distribute them?
I think for a lot of people, it's hard to understand why we need to be at a soccer game. In actual fact, when we attend the soccer game, we usually don't see very much of the game, if any at all. We're there in case anything happens to the president. If there's an incident around the world where the president needs to make a statement, it's very important for us to be there. And it's a long tradition that we've had where we've had that access.